Flavio Dino calls for the expansion of investigations, especially regarding Mario Frias and other federal lawmakers. Due to strong suspicions that public money from parliamentary amendments was diverted to go to the Bolsonaro's movie. But what kind of movie is this, guys? What nonsense is this? It's that lousy Bolsonaro movie that's turning into a Mexican soap opera. What is this? Man, wherever there are Bolsonaro supporters, wherever the Bolsonaro family is, there's a scheme, there's shady business. What is this? Let's take a look here. Look at this. Dino expands investigation into an NGO that received 1 million from Mario Frias. It's Karina's NGO. Look, it's Karina again. Karina Gama, the producer of the film. And by the way, the whole film was produced here in Brazil, okay? Wasn't it, Andre? It was. And the money went abroad. Then the money came back here. Why is that? This is where the problem is. And the police are following the money to find the thieves. Because the suspicion is that the money was diverted, which they said was for the movie. And the movie actually was used to launder stolen money. Stolen public money. But why did they use the movie? Most likely to pay bribes as part of Daniel Vorcaro's mafia scheme. It's already known that the movie was produced in Brazil. No part of the movie was produced in the United States. The federal police already know about this. And the federal police, according to statements from Karina herself, she said that she received the money from Paulo Carlisto's fund, who is Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyer. The money could have gone directly to GOP, which has Karina as its sole owner. But the money didn't go. Nor did it go to Entre Entretenimentos, which was responsible for the financial side of the movie. The money went to the United States, to a fund in Texas. The person responsible is Paulo Carlisto, Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyer. And from there, the money came back to Brazil. The money leaves Brazil, goes to Texas. From Texas, comes back to Brazil, and it's said to go into GOP. Brazilian company. And that then GOP received the money transferred by Daniel Vorcaro. The police are suspicious of the route the money took. The movie was entirely produced in Brazil. They're saying the movie was produced abroad. That's a lie. The movie was produced and everything was filmed here in Brazil. Why did the money go to the United States? To a fund account belonging to a person who has nothing to do with the film's production. Who is Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyer? Then after that, they said the money came back to Brazil. And when the money went to the United States, the police already have Eduardo Bolsonaro's statement asking to send as much money as possible over there to his lawyer's account. Look, send as much money as possible here to the United States, which would be Texas, to the account fund. And the person responsible is Paulo Carlisto, who is Eduardo Bolsonaro's immigration lawyer, who has nothing to do with anything. Then from there, the money, according to the film's producer, went back to Brazil. And it reached the production company. Why this criminal route? Better yet, why this money trail? Better. For the federal police, this is a scheme to make it harder to track the money. And to launder money. That's the situation. And look, I'm explaining this to you only regarding the money that Daniel Vorcaro injected into the film. Because so far we don't have proof that the money really went to the movie. Yes, the more than 60 million reais that Daniel Vorcaro transferred to the movie. Besides that, right, there's the issue of budget earmarks. It was discovered that federal deputies, state deputies, not just federal ones, pay attention to this. That state deputies and even city councilors may have sent earmark funds to Karina's NGO, producer of the film and the sole owner and sole partner of GoGo. The company was created, the production company was created to make the film. And members of parliament sent money to this NGO. And the money trail will reveal the thief. And this NGO of Karina, apparently she also sent parliamentary amendment money to the film. It's already known that Congressman Marcos Polos sent Biakichis. Carla Zambelli, when she was a federal congresswoman, Mario Frias also sent it. And what's Mario Frias' role? Mario Frias is the executive director of the movie. Bolsonaro's ally, former Minister of Culture under Bolsonaro. And this part, regarding the budget earmarks made by federal lawmakers, there is already an investigation. And Flavio Dino today ordered the deepening and expansion of this investigation. Because what is the suspicion? That public money, which should have gone to health and education, went to this NGO for it to invest in culture and education. But actually, she took this public money and put it into the movie. That's the situation that's happening here. And the rapporteur for this case is exactly Flavio Dino. Congressman Lindenberg Farias even asked Flavio Dino, add to all this Flavio Bolsonaro himself to the list of people under investigation. Because the one who was demanding money from Daniel Vorcaro and causing the whole situation is exactly Flavio Bolsonaro. And the one that received the movie money was Paulo Carvalho's Texas account. Arlisto Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyer. What kind of relationship is that? How much money is there for this movie? And we already know that Karina, this producer, also had a 5 million contract with Ibanez's government. Ibanez is also being investigated for the Banco Master fraud. Ibanez Rocha, former governor of the federal district, together with Paulo Henrique, who is cooperating with prosecutors and is in prison, the president of BRB, took public money from BRB. BRB is a state-owned public bank. It's like Caixa Econômica Federal. But BRB is part of the federal district government. It's a public bank. They took more than 12 billion in public money from BRB and injected it into that devil Daniel Vorcaro. And now we found out that this Karina also had a contract with the government of Ibanez Rocha, which is BRB's. So there are many situations that need to be investigated. And to catch the thief, or rather the thieves, you have to follow the money. I've always told you that you have to follow the money. Everything they're saying that happened regarding the movie, that it was amendment money for the movie, very possibly that it was money from Daniel Vorcaro for the movie, they're going to have to prove all of that. They're going to have to prove all of that. And about the movie, where did that money go if it went to the movie? I reiterate. It's interesting that someone I told you about, that for me, Karina is the main proxy. Then someone here came and commented, Andrea, the proxy isn't innocent. My dear, a proxy is not innocent. The proxy is used to do what the big criminals can't do, because if they do it themselves, they attract too much attention. For me, Karina is at the center of almost everything, and she is the main proxy. And not just her, Paolo Carlisto, Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyer, is also a major proxy. Since Eduardo Bolsonaro couldn't receive this money in his own account, especially because his accounts are blocked, he found a proxy. And from all indications, it's Paolo Carlisto, his lawyer in the United States, who is receiving the money. What does the police have to do? They have to go after Karina. Paolo Carlisto isn't in Brazil, so it's harder. So who do they have to go after? Karina. Karina needs to be arrested. She needs to give a statement, and all her protected records need to be opened up. And as a front person, she's going to spill the beans. And a front person, I repeat, is not innocent. He agrees to take part in the criminal organization, I repeat, to do what the bosses can't do so they don't attract too much attention. And now, in the latest revelation, we find out that she also had a contract there in Paraíba. Who, Andrea Gonçalves? Karina. She was also able to secure a contract with Mario Frias, acting exactly as the intermediary. And it has now come out through an operation by the civil police of the state of São Paulo. A contract she also made with the City Hall of the Bolsonaro supporter, Ricardo Nunes, the mayor of São Paulo, worth 108 million reais. And there were 3 amendments reaching almost 160 million reais. She didn't have a company that provided the service. She hired a subcontractor after winning the bidding process. If she didn't have a company that provided the service of installing and providing Wi-Fi internet access for the underprivileged community, how did she win the bidding process? How did she win the bidding process if she didn't have a company that provided this service? So much so that after she won the bidding process, I don't know how she hired a third-party company to provide the service. So much so that the civil police have already found several fake fraudulent invoices from this scheme. So we're looking at several crimes here. The first crime is this: the fraud in the bidding process to benefit Karina. And what is the interest of the São Paulo government, the city hall, in hiring her? What's the interest? The interest of the Bolsonaro supporter Ricardo Nunes in giving her 160 million for a service her company as a legal entity couldn't provide since she'd never done it before. And where did the money go? Because the public administration, my dear state, municipality, federal government, they can't just hire anyone. It needs to go through a process called bidding. It's an administrative process where people who are qualified, who provide that type of service, sign up to participate in the bidding process to see who is the most capable, the most qualified, and who offers the lowest price to provide the service. It's a kind of competition, to make it clearer so you can understand. The bidding process is a kind of competition to choose who is the most capable, who is the most experienced, and who offers the most suitable price to be hired to provide that public service, since we're saying that it's public money that's going to pay for it. And someone who had never worked in the field, who didn't even have a company that provided the service, simply won. How did she win this bidding process? You can start investigating from there. And why? Because they really wanted her to be the winner. Why were there 3 amendments? Because the bidding process was initially for 108 million, then they made 3 amendments and it reached almost 60 million, where she didn't even provide all the services. The police want to know all of this, and they will follow the money. You can be sure of that. She seems like a lone wolf, but she isn't. She is the sole partner of her company. She is the sole owner of her NGO, and she is the sole owner of Go Up, which was chosen as the producer to make the film, even though it had never made a film before. And she only got authorization from Monsignor in June 2025 to do it. She was already doing it before. She is not a lone wolf. She is a front person. Apparently, for a criminal organization, powerful people who hold positions of power and didn't want to show up, that's why they found a proxy. Just like Paulo Carlisto deep in Texas, who received money from Daniel Gorka. Thank you. All for what? Thank you. Guess what? What is the police's suspicion? Embezzlement of public funds and money laundering for paying bribes. So much so that it became very clear Flavio wasn't asking Daniel Borcaro for money. Flavio, in the leaked audio, was trying to collect money from Daniel Vorcaro. Asking for something is one thing, collecting payment is another. I've already told you this. When you collect money from someone, either you're collecting from a business partner or from someone who works for you, or you're charging for a service you provided, or you're collecting because you sold something to that person. Otherwise, you lack the authority to make any demands. There are a lot of things that need to be explained. Dark holes. An amendment by Mario Frias for the NGO may have funded a rave in São Paulo. A 1 million parliamentary amendment allocated by Federal Deputy Mario Frias for jiu-jitsu classes, jiu-jitsu for underprivileged children. In Pirassununga, a city of 73,000 inhabitants located 200 kilometers from São Paulo's capital. It may have financed a 28-hour rave with up to 10,000 participants. Where did God, Homeland, and Family go? Oh, Andrea, but what's the point in theory? What's the public interest in financing a rave people in a private party? What's the public interest in that? But what's the scheme they use? The scheme is the rachadinha, which in the case of parliamentary amendments, I'll call the rachadao. The guy takes the money from the parliamentary amendment, the congressman or the senator, and says, look, I'm going to fund this project. I'll send you $1 million, but you'll have to give me back 500,000. That's the rachadao. They say they're putting money into a particular initiative, but only a small part actually goes to that stated purpose. It could be health, education, culture, and so on. And the other part is returned. There's a kickback, and it goes back to that congressman. It's the kickback scheme involving parliamentary budget amendments. And I'll repeat, what is the public interest in funding a private rave party? And we know that the vast majority of these parties, which last more than 24 hours like this one, 28 hours straight at the party, for you to handle that, you have to be using some kind of drug. Otherwise, you can't take it. And we know that at these parties, unfortunately, it's public knowledge that there's a lot of drugs involved. What's the public interest in this? The owner of the production company, Dark Rose, expanded her business after meeting Mario Frias. The journalist received around 100 million reais from the contracts. The São Paulo City Hall is one of the main funders, and in fact, it is already known that it reached almost 160 million. And she was very close to Mario Frias, producer of Bolsonaro's film and former Minister of Culture under Bolsonaro. Let's not forget that. Meanwhile, it leaked that the federal police is targeting Ciro Nogueira because of monthly payments from Vorcaro in Menda Master and a trip costing almost 2 million reais. This here is Vorcaro with Senator Ciro Nogueira. Ciro Nogueira, former chief of staff under Bolsonaro, now a senator. The federal police suspects and claims that he was receiving a monthly allowance of 300,000 to 500,000 per month. He had a card belonging to Daniel Vorcaro that he used. The bills, there were bills paid by Daniel Vorcaro, and there were trips funded by Daniel Vorcaro, pagadas por Daniel Vorcaro. And the police found out that one of these trips was to the Swiss Alps, where only billionaires go. And that Vorcaro paid just on this trip, just for Ciro Nogueira, 2 million reais. In exchange for what? We already know there was another trip in New York where the hotel stay was 130,000 reais per day. We already know there was a party where Ciro Nogueira was present, where the former governor of Rio de Janeiro, Claudio Castro, was also present, among others. And that there was a whiskey tasting worth $1 million. And that the whiskey alone cost 5 million reais. And that Daniel Vorcaro invited these politicians, the governor of Rio de Janeiro, Senator Ciro Nogueira, and the news is that Hugo Mota was also present, and he paid for everything. He made his jet available, paid for the hotel, paid for everything. And in this episode, 10 people were present. All 10 were men because women were not allowed to enter. And he paid the whole bill, and just the whiskey was 5 million reais. All of them what? Supposedly right-wing Bolsonaro supporters. This one right here, Ciro Nogueira, who as recently as 45 days ago was in a video where Flavio said Ciro would be his dream running mate. There's this video where Flavio says that Ciro Nogueira is his dream running mate. Obviously, he doesn't want you to see this or even know about it, but that's the situation. Also present was the former governor of Rio de Janeiro, Claudio Castro, from the same political group as Flavio Bolsonaro. Do you know something the federal police wants to know? What are they investigating? It's whether who introduced Daniel Vorcaro to whom? The federal police want to know if it was Claudio Castro, who is a member of Flavio Bolsonaro's political group in Rio de Janeiro. They want to know if it was Claudio Castro who introduced Daniel Vorcaro to Flavio Bolsonaro. The federal police want to know that, or if it was the other way around. If it was Senator Flavio Bolsonaro who introduced Daniel Vorcaro to Claudio Castro. Then you say to me, Andre, but what's the importance of this? It sounds like gossip. No. From this, we will know where it is, where it went, the origin of this entire criminal organization. If it happened through Flavio Bolsonaro introducing Daniel Vorcaro to the corrupt authorities, just like him, to get into the scheme, or if it was Claudio Castro who introduced Daniel Vorcaro and started the whole scheme, not only in Rio de Janeiro, but also in Brasilia and in São Paulo. I said in the 8:30 live stream that the relationship between the Bolsonaro family and Daniel Vorcaro is not recent. For me, the one who introduced Daniel Vorcaro was Senator Flavio Bolsonaro. Why do I say that? Because back then, the central bank under Campos Neto, who was chosen by Bolsonaro, was the one who allowed Banco Master to become what it is today. It was back then, during Bolsonaro's government, that Onyx Lorenzoni, Bolsonaro's Minister of Social Security, authorized Banco Master to make deductions from INSS retirees and pensioners. where Banco Master is also involved in the INSS fraud, just as it is involved in the fraud at Banco Master itself. So the relationship between the Bolsonaro family and Daniel Vorcaro goes way back. Another thing that might explain this relationship today is that Daniel Vorcaro was the biggest donor to Bolsonaro's campaign. Bolsonaro, through his brother-in-law, who is one of his main financial agents, according to the federal police, namely Fabiano Zetel, his brother-in-law, who is also in prison. Fabiano Zetel donated 3 million to the electoral campaign. He deposited as an individual his own money. He deposited it into Bolsonaro's personal account, into the electoral account in 2022, 3 million reais. He was the biggest donor to Bolsonaro's campaign, just as he was the biggest donor to Tarcísio de Freitas' campaign. In other words, the Vorcaros wanted Bolsonaro to remain president. So much so that they injected money and were the biggest donors to Bolsonaro's campaign to see if he could get re-elected in 2022. What was the interest of the Bolsonaros and what was the connection between the Bolsonaros and Zezetel that made him want Bolsonaro to be re-elected so badly? And that's not all. Vorcaro. In 2022, he also lent his jet worth more than 200 million reais so that Nicolas Ferreira could campaign for Bolsonaro. From the first Sunday of October 2022 until the last Sunday of October 2022. In 2022, the government Nicolas Ferreira and Bolsonaro wanted didn't happen. I understand. Política pelo Brasil. And for that, he used the jet that was lent by Daniel Vorcaro, worth more than 200 million reais, where Nicolas Ferreira made 10 trips. 1, 2, 3. Today, you can't even borrow a bicycle. If you needed to, you probably can't get a bicycle just to take a ride. Who lends a jet worth more than 200 million raised to someone? If that person doesn't have a direct interest, direct connections, and direct benefits and profits with the person to whom he is lending the private jet. Thank you. Of more than 200 million reais for 10 trips. You can't even borrow a bike now. So for me, the person who introduced Daniel Vorcaro to the political arena, which set all of this in motion, was Flavio Bolsonaro. As the federal deputy Antonio de Paula himself said, Flavio Bolsonaro is very greedy. I think their eyes, not just Flavio's, but also Eduardo Bolsonaro's, lit up when they saw how many millions they could steal. In Daniel Vorcaro's schemes, their eyes lit up and they dove right in. And now there's no way out because the police found the loose thread. All they have to do is pull it and it leads straight to the money. They splurged, they went wild, and they're going to get screwed just like Daniel Vorcaro is already screwed, already in jail. 21 people are already in jail because of the frauds committed by Daniel Vorcaro's group. And you can be sure that there will be others who will be arrested. It won't be just senators, no. Flavio won't go alone. Eduardo Bolsonaro, let's call him a congressman, even though he's not anymore. He's already been stripped of office. He's ineligible. He won't go alone either. There are people to be caught. You just have to follow the money. The money is Habs. Just follow the money. Let's see here.
The one who commands, who appoints, who works in the police forces of Rio de Janeiro is Flavio Bolsonaro. But Flavio, all appointments in the Rio de Janeiro state security system are made by Flavio Bolsonaro. I want to tell the people of Rio de Janeiro that if the state's public security is as it is, that's a question for presidential hopeful Flavio Bolsonaro, since everything went through him. The appointments go through him, whether it's the civil police or the military police. 2 cabinet secretaries that he appointed have already been arrested. So what? His trusted man has now shown up with an aide talking to a drug dealer. Grab the newspaper and you'll see. So, when I said that I don't know who introduced whom to whom, whether it was Claudio Castro who introduced Vorcaro to Flavio, or if it was Flavio who introduced Vorcaro to Claudio Castro, do you know why? Because simply Claudio Castro, who is going to be arrested, okay? There's no other way. He's going to be arrested.
But governor of Rio because it's Rio Previdencia.
Why did Claudio Castro replace the entire leadership of Rio Previdencia to put in 3.7 billion? And at the same time, Flavio is negotiating with Vorcaro.
Yeah, Tony De Paula is from Rio de Janeiro. And he knows that area well. And he says that the appointments to public security in Rio de Janeiro and the government of then Claudio Castro, who was impeached and is now ineligible and soon to be a prisoner, were made by Senator Flavio Bolsonaro because they were part of the same political group. 2 secretaries he appointed have already been arrested for involvement with the Comando Vermelho. T.H. Joyas, former state deputy, former president of the Legislative Assembly, also from Flavio's group. He has also been arrested for involvement with the Comando Vermelho. T.H. Joyas has already been arrested for involvement with the Comando Vermelho. Anyway, it's a horrible situation. And it's gonna have to reach the leaders, guys. And we know that the leaders are the former governor of Rio de Janeiro and also, from what everything indicates, Flavio Bolsonaro himself. Besides having these suspicions, right, since he only had relationships with criminals. The entire political group, pay attention, the entire political group of Flavio Bolsonaro in Rio de Janeiro is being arrested. They are being arrested. And it's not possible that this time he'll get away again, like he did with the Rachadinha case. Besides, in addition to all these situations involving crime, money laundering, criminal organization, militia, Comando Vermelho, he still acts to sabotage the Brazilian government, hurting the whole nation. With this situation of high tariffs, with all these situations that we already know about and that we're experiencing and that we need some explanations for, let's take a look here. Let me go back here. Let me see if we can see it.
Brazilian. And in this document, they even talk about PIX, saying that it's unfair competition for American payment methods. That's absurd. PIX is an achievement of the Brazilian people that made life much easier for everyone. And we will fight, yes, for our PIX and for national sovereignty. In fact, I'm heading now to the United States with a group of lawmakers and party leaders from Brazil, where we will have meetings with the U.S. Foreign Relations Committee, defending our PIX, the Brazilian people, our sovereignty, our democracy, and free elections this year.
Yes, a delegation of lawmakers got together to go to the United States to try to talk with other parliamentarians to try to help Brazil in the face of these attacks coming from the Trump administration. A new 25% tariff is being proposed, and he is also threatening PIX, okay? Besides that, there was an emergency meeting now with Lula's ministers to also try to see what can be done. Good health to everyone. Health is most important since we can manage everything else. Let's see a bit more of the demonstrations here.
In that conversation you had with Karina, she stated that Daniel Vorcaro mediated more than 90% of the film's funding. But the investigators have already found out that the production company also works with legislative earmarks, both federal and municipal, as you yourself pointed out here. And Rodrigo, whom I also spoke with for this episode, points out the same situation. How far can an investigation, in your opinion, Bowser, into GoAP go?
Karina Gama said that all the money that reached her production company went through the fund Heaven Gates, a fund based in Texas whose administrator is the lawyer Paulo Callisto. He is an ally. He is Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyer and also a personal friend of Eduardo Bolsonaro. So she said that the money came from the fund Heaven Gates, went to the production company GoAP in the United States because GoAP has an American branch. It has a partner who operates in the United States. Karina Gama's partner and the partner from the American branch of the production company came to GoAP Brazil to pay for the film here in Brazil. The whole film was shot in Brazil. Not a single scene was filmed in the United States. So the path of the money is it leaves Vorcaro, goes through that fund called Entre Investimentos e Participações, then to Heaven Gates, from Heaven Gates to the American GOP, and from the American GOP to the Brazilian GOP. The federal police are very suspicious of this money trail. They're convinced that this money most likely wasn't just for the film, and they want to move forward with these investigations.
Do you think the money was actually just for the film? Because, I mean, if that much money went to the film, what kind of film is this? Not even Star Wars, which at the time used technology and everything, not even the most high-tech movies that use artificial intelligence and all that cost that much. What kind of film is this? Did it work out? Sorry, but if you ask me, that money didn't go to the film. That money must be funding something else. Dudu Bananinha over there in a 6 million real house. Because for God's sake, it makes no sense.
No. Anyone who knows Flavio can't imagine this guy running the country. It's not possible. We're talking about something completely out of line. This is someone who got rich in politics without accomplishing anything. Got rich without ever having worked. We're talking about a senator, a congressman who's been in office for over 20 years and hasn't passed any bill that mattered to the country. During his father's term as president, he couldn't get his projects approved, not even when he was the president's son. Then someone says, no, but it's very hard to get a bill passed. Come on, but when your father is the president and you still can't get a bill passed, it's because there's nothing worthwhile in what you do. Man, these are things you can't even imagine. What this guy did at the Federal Revenue Service, how he filled the government with his people. I got there later to set things straight. He was a key organizer pushing to end the tie-breaking vote at Carr, mainly due to pressure from tax-evading businessmen. Look, anyone who knows Flavio just can't. Anyone who knows Flavio can't imagine this guy as president of the Republic.
I'm going to be honest with you. I can't imagine Flavio Bolsonaro as president of the Republic, but I can easily imagine him as a prisoner. And you? Do you see Flavio Bolsonaro as the president of the Republic? I don't see it. But I see him as a prisoner. Hey. And what about Eduardo Bolsonaro? Eduardo Bolsonaro is actually set to go on trial later this month and convicted. And he will literally become a prisoner. In fact, a fugitive from justice. Like the live stream so YouTube recommends it to more people, and share and leave your comment. And don't forget about the WhatsApp channel. Whenever there's a new live, I send it here so you don't miss anything. There are a lot of people who think I only show up here once in a while. I'm here every day from Monday to Friday, live at 8:30 and 12:30. It's just that you don't get the notification because you're not in the WhatsApp group. Just get WhatsApp and join the group, and I'll send updates whenever there's something new. If you can't join, check the first comment. Kisses. See you next time.